Paul faced a great deal of opposition and criticism during his life. He had persecuted the church prior to his conversion, so people questioned his sincerity and motives. They questioned the legitimacy of his calling and ministry. They wondered if he was only in it for the money, simply fleecing the flock like so many others. So Paul answered his critics and defended his apostleship. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 3. This is my defense to those who would examine me. Do we not have the right to eat and drink? Do we not have the right to take along a believing wife, as do the other apostles and the brothers of the Lord, and Cephas? Or is it only Barnabas and I who have no right to refrain from working for a living? Who serves as a soldier at his own expense? Who plants a vineyard without eating any of its fruit? Or who tends a flock without getting some of the milk? This passage shows that the church routinely paid the ministry a salary and covered the traveling expenses of the other apostles and evangelists so they could go into all the world and preach the gospel. Paul argued that this was only fair since he and Barnabas were doing the same work that the others were doing, so they deserved similar compensation. After all, everyone who works at a job expects to receive a paycheck. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 8. Do I say these things on human authority? Does not the law say the same? For it is written in the law of Moses, you shall not muzzle an ox when it treads out the grain. Is it for oxen that God is concerned? Does he not certainly speak for our sake? It was written for our sake, because the plowman should plow in hope, and the thresher thresh in hope of sharing in the crop. Paul appealed to the Torah to buttress his argument, so he clearly didn't believe that it had been abolished. He assumed that the Corinthians viewed the Old Testament as inspired and authoritative for Christians. In ancient Israel, farmers would use an ox to pull a sledge over the threshing floor to separate the wheat or barley from the chaff. God told the Israelites to let the ox munch some of the grain while it was working. Jewish rabbis would frequently use a Torah statute like this to argue for a broader application based on an underlying moral principle. Paul was well acquainted with rabbinical methods of interpretation, as we see here. This argument would have been particularly effective on Jewish Christians. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 11. If we have sown spiritual things among you, is it too much if we reap material things from you? If others share this rightful claim on you, do not we even more? Nevertheless, we have not made use of this right, but we endure anything rather than put an obstacle in the way of the gospel of Christ. According to Acts 18, when Paul first arrived in Corinth, he stayed with a Jewish couple named Priscilla and Aquila and worked with them because they were tent makers. Paul supported himself so he could set a good example for others and refute those who claimed that he was trying to fleece the flock. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 13. Do you not know that those who are employed in the temple service get their food from the temple, and those who serve at the altar share in the sacrificial offerings? In the same way, the Lord commanded that those who proclaim the gospel should get their living by the gospel. Paul taught that the same principle of giving tithes and offerings to support the Levitical priesthood also applies to the ministry of the church. According to Paul, this is what the Lord commanded the church to do. In Galatians 6, verse 6, Paul also said, let the one who is taught the word share all good things with the one who teaches. So Christians have a responsibility to make sure that the full-time ministry receives an adequate salary that is comparable to what they are earning. Paul's defense of his ministry is further evidence that the Torah is God's basic definition of right and wrong for all humanity. Jesus expected his disciples to teach and keep the Mosaic Law, and the apostles affirmed the authority of the Torah throughout the New Testament. So the Law of Moses is still relevant as a guide for proper Christian behavior.